Hello, Hamish here from mortgagesonline.co.nz. I have Miriam Bell with me today, senior business reporter from Stuff and stuff.co.nz. And we're
Hi,
talking.
Hamish.
Hello, and we're going to talk property prices, aren't we?
We are. We are.
What do you think? Data hard to
It
pin
is a
your
bit
hat
hard
on.
to pin down. I mean, the Delta lockdown does make a difference in terms of the way the market has been flowing and going, and comparing it to sort of previous periods where there weren't the restrictions in place. Having said that, the various data company people that I talked to sort of seem to agree that prior to lockdown, the market was easing off. And price growth starting to slow. And they seem to think that although there may be a bit of pent-up demand and sort of a little bit of a bounce back after lockdown, that trajectory we were seeing prior will continue. So price growth will continue to slow. And the market, that frenzy that was seen earlier this year, will keep dropping off further and further.
As an example, so out of Auckland, places like, I think we talked about Rotorua. What did you have seen out
Well,
there?
yeah, it's interesting because there does seem to be quite a lot of volatility and monthly volatility, particularly, and sort of quite sharp reversals and turns and stuff in the data that comes through. CoreLogic's house price index data was out yesterday, and that shows, for example, with Rotorua, that values were up by 1.9% in September, but that was after being down 0.9% in August. And so that means that over the quarter, prices are down by 2.4% in Rotorua, which, given it was quite a boom sort of in place for a while, is quite an interesting sort of change, I guess.
Yeah. How about Tauranga? Got any data for Tauranga?
Power has been having a very solid period of time as it happens. It has had the highest quarterly rate of all the main centres over the quarter at 7%, and that's
Wow.
left it with an average value of just over $1 million. It's a strong performer currently, and
Uh, 1 million. That's the thing. I mean, that's kind of similar to Auckland, right? Parts of
almost, yeah.
Auckland.
Also, Wellington sort of values are up there now too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite a change to have those big centres with those prices. It does show that it's not just Auckland that have a very high average or median price.
What is Auckland doing?
Auckland is currently 1 second. Its growth rate has dropped off. Its average value is now 1.3 million, according to CoreLogic, which is pretty scary. But its quarterly rate dropped to 4.9% in September, but that was from 5.7 in August. So that's quite a slowing sort of
Mm.
pace. I mean,
Yeah.
you might expect that given the lockdown, but at the same time, all these areas are still struggling with a very limited supply of stock coming onto the market for sale. And that seems to be one of the big drivers behind some of those very high prices still.
Yeah, and I think I noticed it somewhere that it might be that building consents are high, but actual CCCs issued are flat, meaning it's kind of we've got a lot of a pipeline happening, but the delivery we might be hitting capacity, for
Yeah,
delivery.
yeah, I've heard that. And also, obviously, at the moment, too, there's issues around supply chain
Yeah,
problems, holding up materials and products, and that impacts on costs and delivery times. And so that, too, is, I gather, having a bit of an impact on building.
yeah.
But highest consent rate since the 70s, or even past that now, I think. So it is that they are in the pipeline, as you say, but how that translates, I guess, remains to be seen.
Yeah, look, and the other feeling is that next year, with this new immigration policy out, right? Kind of surprised you with that one. I didn't mention we were going to talk about that, but I guess that's a big factor because suddenly a lot of those people will be able to buy, being able
Yeah.
to fast track to their resident permit will completely change the game because a lot of the banks with this overseas buyer ban and stuff, they were unable to do the lending for a lot of people that didn't have their residency permit.
Yeah, that's true. Although I guess the same thing would apply in terms of, the lending criteria or lending conditions tightening up considerably too as we
Yeah.
go forward. So, while there could still be an increase in demand, when I was talking to someone yesterday for a story, I can't remember who offhand, that they made the valid point that while that willingness or desire to buy may still be there, it will be harder for many people now to borrow, to buy. And so, yeah, we'll be
Yeah.
able to see how that plays out. And obviously, rising mortgage rates are expected to have an impact in that area too. So, I guess
Yeah, I know. I mean, my gut feeling is that it feels like if we're introducing a whole bunch of more New Zealand citizens next year, or residents, basically one of the things is that kind of, I don't know, at a guess, 800 to 1.2 $1 million band is where the real demand might spike. And again, it becomes harder to find that in Auckland unless if you're going in Auckland, it's going to have to be apartments, right?
apartments or townhouses. I mean, as I think I was writing a story recently or trying to about properties under the median price, because obviously if it's a median price, you'd expect there to be a fair amount of properties sold for under that median. And I think there are, but as you say, I think in Auckland, they are probably overwhelmingly townhouses and apartments. Having said that, there's some very nice ones around.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you can
yeah,
definitely find some good ones for that price.
definitely the new stock and everything that's coming on. And but I wonder with working remotely and the lack of houses, whether in the long run and the way the lockdowns look, sometimes you wonder whether out of Auckland will become more favourable, for a lot of people.
I think there's a feeling that may happen. I don't know whether anybody's got the data to at this point anyway to show that may be a big trend. But you definitely hear from places like Wanganui that they've had a big influx of people because the house prices are more affordable and you can work remotely from anywhere. So it has the cheaper house prices and some of the aspects of city life which might be appealing.
Funny you should mention Wanganui because I was actually I was talking to a couple of people that are starting to look down there as well lately. But it seems to be one of the last ones where it's hasn't really well, there's still opportunities maybe there. That's what it feels like.
I think so. I think there are. I mean, it has had big price growth, from the base that it came from. But as I understand it from talking to people in Wanganui, although it's got harder, there are still options there. I mean, there's still options in other places. It's just, I think the competition might be higher in other places maybe. If you look to Christchurch, for example, which has become very popular, I understand it with people looking out of town. So, and definitely if you compare a median price in Christchurch to Auckland, you can see the attraction of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a beautiful place, really.
Yeah. Well, it's had the big rebuild too. So, if you're in the centre of Christchurch, there's a feeling of change and vibrancy there, which is attractive.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for your time, Miriam.
Anytime. Thank you.
And thanks for watching.
Cool.